welcome to episode 29 of the Woke-ish podcast. This is Ebony.
And this is Zelma.
And this week, Zelma and I will be playing government.
Yes.
So that will be happening in our What's Being Slept On segment. But before we get there, we will have our shout-out segment. But even before we get there, we want to thank you for helping us to reach 2,000 listens.
Yay!
We really appreciate y'all's support and your consistent support.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even know like how many people were listening, and so it's like, I don't know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
So keep, we just do this. Some of it for us to vent, but a lot of it for, to spread information. Mm-hmm. And so we really like, what we can do on our end is see like which episodes are most helpful. Mm-hmm. And so it was really nice for us to see that our grad school episode seemed to be really popular. And so we were just happy that we were able to share some of that information with people. Mm-hmm. And so we always say this at every episode, at the end of the episode, but please send along any suggestions, any topics that you found weren't helpful or were. It's not going to hurt our feelings. We're always just trying to find topics that we think would be most important and helpful. Yeah. So yes, just keep sending that our way, and we'll definitely listen, and we'll cater the podcast to, help you guys the most.
Yeah. And that goes for any segment. So if you have input for shout out, for in the know, or for what's being slept on topic,
yes,
send those our way.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're gonna jump into our shout out segment. So first, I want to give a shout out to Florida for passing Florida Amendment 4, which will restore the voting rights of individuals with felony convictions after they complete all terms of their sentence, including parole or probation. The amendment would not, however, apply to those convicted of murder or sexual offenses, who will continue to be permanently barred from voting. But, this is awesome because according to CNN, more than 1 in 5 Black adults could not vote in Florida before this amendment passed.
Yeah, they said it's over 1 million people now will be able to vote in Florida, which always happens to be one of those states that, it's close calls on, like, governors, presidents, senators.
So sad.
Although, did you see, he apparently, they're going to do a recount.
Oh, really?
Because
Florida. It was like, what was it, 0.6%?
Yeah, so he sent his...
if you don't know what we're talking about, Andrew Gillum, who we have shouted out a few times.
Yeah, because he's awesome.
Yeah, did not get elected governor.
Yes.
So we're sad about that, but also happy about this Amendment 4.
Yes, I was catching up on the news because I was trying to figure out still so much happened with the midterms. I was trying to figure out what was happy and what was sad. Yeah. And apparently Gillum's lawyers have said that, released a statement saying that on Tuesday when they had conceded and said, I guess we lost, we accept the loss, they weren't aware that not all the ballots were counted. And so they are now seeking and asking for them to look over. And so they're asking people in Florida, if you sent in a provisional ballot, to make sure that you call. And so Sean King, if you follow his Instagram, has a number that you can call to check to make sure that your ballot was counted. Mm-hmm. And so he's saying that he wants to make sure that every vote is counted and that there seems to be enough evidence for a legal recount.
So I believe it. Floridians are crazy. I didn't even, Miami and Orlando kind of lead you to believe that Florida is like this cool state, but it's literally no, those are the 2 cities, and then everywhere else is hella racist.
It's like Texas.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. Houston and Austin are not, but you realize everyone else is red.
Because it's all the racist cluster. Yeah. Because they're like, oh no, it's way too many people of color over here in this cluster in these other cities. And so I feel like, if there were a state where something shady went down, that would be it. Yeah. And Georgia. I don't know. It's how is it that these people, I don't know. We don't have to get into conspiracy, but it just seems a little sus to me. So hopefully that recount happens.
Yes. Yeah. Because I think we'll definitely find that the numbers might be a little different.
I believe it.
Yeah.
And then our second shout out goes to Harris County. where all 19 of the Houston African-American female judges who were up for election won.
And we had shouted them out before because they were nominated. And so all of them won, not just like a couple. I was reading somewhere that like one of the judges had like 96% of the teenagers and kids that they sent to jail or prison were children of color. Mm-hmm. And so it's really nice to be like, ooh, we got some, some Black women who, as we now know, are the only group we can rely on. Yeah,
because it's like, even though Beto lost, right? Yeah. It's like, okay, there's some silver lining. Like, he was talking about prison reform and all of that stuff, and I think that this might help.
Yeah, to have actual judges who do the sentencing, having all 19 of these African American women. And it's not just like, oh, because they're Black women, they're going to not put Black people in jail, but it's like,
I feel like they will, I feel like they are more trustworthy, and I think that what we've been missing is fair sentencing.
Yes.
And I think that we'll get that, rather than, because it's like, oh, people will say things like, oh, because they're Black, they're going to be biased in favor of Black people. Why don't we think that as far as white people?
Yes. No. Yeah.
Yeah, like white people can be biased too, but we, for some reason, trust them more. No, like let's make sure that things are equitable, and it's about time,
Yeah, especially in a city where it's minority majority. Yeah. So like it's time that we diversify the judges that are on the bench. So shout out, in the sadness of Senator Cruz winning, at least, in Harris County, there is some good that came out of the midterm elections. And so that's why, voting is important, even if not everyone you voted for wanted to wins. Like, there's still a lot, like this Amendment 4 and these Harris County judges, like, there's still things that happen because people of color go out and vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to do the next two?
Yeah, and so our next shout out goes to Sharice Davids, an openly gay Native American woman who defeated a Republican incumbent and flipped a red seat blue in Congress, becoming the first Native American woman and then the first Native American woman who was openly gay to Congress. And so shout out to her. I think there's 2 Native American women that were elected to Congress this midterms. And so it was just great. I'm so, in spite of all the negative in terms of the people, some of the big key people we wanted to win didn't win, so many people got elected to Congress. And I just, I was reading somewhere that over 100 women got elected. Wow. And so just shout out to all the people who went on and vote. Yeah. Shout out to Sharice Davis. Shout out to people who keep trying, even though, you might think, oh, because I come from this state, there's no way that I'm going to be able to go to office. And so just a huge inspiration. And finally, and what's sad is this is their country. This is their country. And yet this is their first.
Think about that.
I can't, it makes me so sad.
That this country was stolen from Native Americans. Yeah. And they can't even hold political office.
Yeah. They were.
What?
Yeah. They were. It's crazy.
What?
So shout out to her. Yeah, that we have a first Native American woman in 2018.
That gives me chills to think about.
I know. So at least we got to see in our lifetime that.
Yeah.
I mean, sadly, but it's opening doors. Yeah. Mm. And then lastly, shout out to Kayla, San Francisco's 49ers cheerleader who knelt during the national anthem this past week. Of course, it wasn't covered by the football games or addressed by the NFL. But shout out to her because, it takes bravery to do any act of resistance now, especially in the context of the NFL. And so, that just shows you don't have to be a football player. You don't have to be an athlete to make a stand. You can do your part in whatever way. So definitely shout out to Kayla. I know it must have been really scary, and I'm sure she got a lot of hate.
Yeah. And I kind of think that this was more risky than the football players because I mean, I don't know a whole lot about cheerleading as an occupation, but it doesn't seem as stable.
As,
you being a football player. The team relies on.
I mean, yeah, if you're a football player, a lot of people sometimes will forgive and say, well, he scored a touchdown that day, so that's fine. But cheerleader, people don't really, they're more disposable, I think, in people's eyes. So yeah, definitely shout out to Kayla, because it's definitely an act of bravery. So glad we had so many shout outs this week, because last week we were kind of...
We hope that, I was going to say, we hope that it wasn't too much of a downer, but that's real life.
Yeah.
That's the, if we want less downer information, then we have to make a less downer society.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we will transition into our In the Know segment. Okay, so now for our In the Know segment.
Yeah. And so starting off, and you may have been seeing this around social media or in the news, because once the results come in with any election, they like to break down what demographic voted for what. And so once again, majority white men and women voted to keep problematic candidates. And these problematic candidates include Senator Ted Cruz, Governor DeSantis, and Governor Kemp. And I say they're problematic because Senator Ted Cruz, not only is he an idiot, but his policies hurt a lot of people who I think that are most vulnerable, in terms of he is for defunding Obamacare. Aside from his political stance, also he just I just found it really terrible how he could, in one way, totally kind of go against Trump because Trump insulted his wife, insulted his father, insulted him, called him lying Ted Cruz. And in one instance, Senator Cruz could be oh, this man shouldn't be fit for office. This man, when Ted Cruz was running for president, he was saying that Trump wasn't fit for president, and then turned around and totally kissed his ass by allowing him to back him up. So I didn't like that, as a person. I don't think that you should flip-flop that much, regardless of whether you're a politician or not. But then just some of his stances aren't helpful for people. And I think he does a lot of, he pretends that he's, Latino and really helpful to the Latino population, but then engages in a lot of the rhetoric that I consider to be racist and anti-Latino. And so he's just... Overall, I think he's terrible. And so, unfortunately, he won, although not by a lot. Usually, historically, in Texas, the Republican candidate, it's a landslide. So although majority Black women, Black men, Latino men, and Latino women voted for Beto, majority white women and white men handed Cruz the win. And then we saw this again with Governor DeSantis. Although majority Black women, Black men, Latino men, and Latino women voted for Gillum, majority white women and white men handed DeSantis, who we know now has been financially backed by racist groups, the temporary win, because as we mentioned in the shout out, it's still ongoing in terms of demanding a recount. And then in Georgia, Governor Kemp has been declared the winner, although majority Black women, Black men, Latino men, and Latino women voted for Abrams. Majority white women and white men handed Kemp the win. And so I just wanted to highlight that, because I think a lot of times white people say, well, what can we do? As an ally, what can I do? Or as a white person, what can I do? And it's just or just kind of this rhetoric or narrative that we all should be trying harder. And it's 97% of women, Black women voted for Stacey. And it's just kind of Black women don't need to do more. Who needs to do more are white women. And so I think this just kind of highlights the unfairness of when we all assume that, no, we all need to put in our part. We all need to try harder. We all need to, it's people of color are trying really hard. Like, we're going out there, and the majority of the people of color are voting for the unproblematic candidate, the unracist candidate. The people who are voting for the majority are white men, which is not surprising because they're the ones that are that have the most to lose in terms of losing their privilege. And then white women who you would think would not vote for people who want to defund access to adequate care for women, like voting for people, voting against their interest. Mm-hmm. And so just wanted to highlight that for a little bit, just so we can kind of think about that, for people of color to be like, don't feel like bad that, don't be discouraged. One, and also like when people are saying we need to do more, like it's fair for us as people of color to say, I'm doing my part. Like if we look at the numbers, like who needs to do their part are white women and white men. And then on the other hand, for all the white people who come to me a lot and say like, what can I do? Especially white women who really want to be allies. It's like, don't be an ally to me by giving me a hug and doing shit. Like, be
or
an
telling me to my face that you're going to vote for Beto and then voting for Ted Cruz behind my back.
Yeah, because obviously, white women in Texas supported Ted Cruz. Who supported Brett Kavanaugh, who was accused of sexual assault, who also supports Donald Trump, who's also accused of sexual assault.
So it's like, how do you, again, like I said last week, the level of cognitive dissonance that it takes for you to, bash one person, but then support the person that supports the person you bashed. It's like the fact that you don't see those connections is scary and hella frustrating. Yeah. Because it's like, I don't know. Like my biggest concern is that these, people of color that came out and showed up, like I don't want them to be discouraged, and be like, well, why does it matter? Like, why do I continue to do this when no matter what they win? And it's like, no, we need that. We need, and then eventually it will pay off. Yeah. And even if it pays off, at a smaller level, because the people that got these judges elected also voted for Beto. And so it's like, if you had not come out to vote for Beto, those judges wouldn't have been elected. Yes. Yeah. So it's like, we got to look at these things as, maybe we didn't win the war. Yeah. But we won a battle. We won a battle, and that's going to help in the long run. Yes.
And I think for the white allies, especially the white women who are allies, this is like a wake-up call again to say, white women, just because you're a woman doesn't mean you're going to, or I was reading an article that said that like these white women who voted for Ted Cruz are voted for their whiteness over their womanness. Mm-hmm. And so it's just kind of like when we talk about intersectional feminism and when, we've had the podcast about why Ebony's not a feminist, and for people who are critical and are just kind of like, you need to be a feminist if you're a woman. It's like, this is exactly why we don't just sometimes feel like we belong to the white feminist movement, to the feminist movement, which is the white feminist movement, because of shit like this. It's like they voted for their whiteness over their womanness, because Ted Cruz is not for, he's not for women. He actually is, doing things that are against the interest of women as a whole. And so, just wanted to kind of bring that into the In the Know for those two particular reasons. Yep.
And you know what they're also going to do? They're also going to help to reelect Trump, who has just recently announced that Mike Pence will continue to be his running mate. Mm. And Mike Pence wants to get rid of abortion. Yeah, and same-sex marriage. And same-sex marriage. And so it's like, are you going to support the person who doesn't care at all about your reproductive rights? And as you define them. You understand abortion rights as part of your reproductive rights. Yeah. And part of the feminist movement. And so you're going to help to elect someone who wants to do away with that. Yeah. We just need to, I don't know. So last week I said people need to do a better job raising their sons. They also need to do a better job raising their daughters, because there's a whole lot of issues. Yes, and
white people look at your other white people instead of asking people of color how they can help. Like, you need to do your own work.
Yeah.
Don't, like Ebony's, like we had mentioned earlier in other episodes, like, don't avoid white people.
Yeah.
Don't avoid your family because you don't want to have uncomfortable political conversations. It's like,
have
no.
Them.
Yeah.
Have
like
them.
you have to now because obviously there's a lot of grandmas, aunts, sisters, mothers that are out here voting against your interests.
Who don't leave the house otherwise, but when it's time to vote, they're out there.
Our second is kind of like some good news-ish. Attorney General Jeff Sessions resigns, quote unquote, and I say this because in his resignation letter, he starts it by saying, per your request, I'm giving my resignation, and so he is no longer on Trump's administration. Jeff Sessions was a racist, terrible man, so this is like not a sad thing, but it's just kind of like, at this point in this administration, I'm always like, oh gosh, I hope the next person's not worse. So this comes just a day after midterm elections. Apparently, Sessions received a phone call Wednesday morning from White House Chief of Staff John Kelly before the president held a news conference telling him that the president wanting Sessions to resign, an administration official said. So now we will have Matthew Whitaker, who will become the new acting attorney general, who apparently is all against stopping the Mueller investigation and stopping the Russian probe and stopping any investigation into Trump. So it is not at all surprising that this is who Trump would choose as the acting attorney general. So definitely keep an eye out. But, I mean, it was a long time coming, and I don't feel bad for Jeff Sessions at all. And then finally, our last, we have 2 more stories. And so since we last recorded, there have been 2 additional mass shootings, one at a yoga studio in Florida where 2 women were killed. One woman was just 21, and then one more recently that I think got more media attention at a bar in Thousand Oaks, California, where 12 people were killed. And so at first there was some conservative person tweeted that it was a Middle Eastern man. And of course a lot of people picked up on that and it seemed like they were like happy. Mm-hmm. But it turns out it was a white man who was a former, a veteran. And there's a lot of talk about how he had previous interaction with cops in terms of some question about his mental stability, and a lot of people were saying he had PTSD. As they all
do. Somehow they always have run-ins with cops before they do this, and it raises no red flags.
So this, to me, speaks more, it's a story more about, like, paying attention to why these people are pushed to the edge where and he took his own life, pushed to the edge where they see, like, this is their only option. And so it's just, it's sad, but Ebony and I were talking before we started recording how crazy and uncrazy at the same time it is that since we recorded, there's been 2 mass shootings.
In the last week.
Yeah.
In the last week, I'm sure there are 18 people that are now dead.
Yeah.
Because why? Because guns are so easily accessible, because of the inadequacies of our mental health system. Mm-hmm. I mean, the reasons
and
go on
and
on.
Ease and access to guns.
Yeah.
I mean, and
even spaces. Like, I mean, people are. It's like we don't have. Now, I'm not on the same page with Trump, like that. I think that there should be armed guards everywhere, right? Yeah. But if we're gonna have guns, we need to find a way to somehow detect that. So I don't know if that means metal detector. I don't know. But something needs to happen, because this is like, the frequency is like, it's crazy. I remember when all we had to talk about was Columbine, which was bad enough. Yeah. And now it's like, it happens so much that you lose track. And like, they all blend together. Wait,
which one was which one?
Yeah.
And
when did that happen? How many people died?
This was the guy that shot that one. No, this is the guy that shot and so wanted to include that just because if you follow our episodes, it's a topic that Ebony and I are very concerned about in terms of like gun reform and the negative, the consequences of a lack of real regulation in terms of, And a lot of people were saying, oh, well, it wasn't an assault rifle. It was a handgun. And it's still like, well, someone who has had, I mean, it's impossible to get a job if you have any contact with the criminal justice system. So how can we not be as strict with that with guns? So, like, if you had, interactions with the cop, then you shouldn't be allowed to have access to any
you
gun.
You don't want to buy your groceries from someone who has a criminal record, but you're okay with somebody potentially just walking around with a gun with plans of shooting up any public space that you occupy.
Yeah.
Literally any space. Like, one of these happened at a bar.
Yeah.
And one at a yoga studio. You can't even do yoga.
I know. Movie theaters, you can't even watch a movie. You
can't watch a movie. Can't go to a concert. Can't go to school. Can't go to church.
Yeah, church.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways. Okay, so the last thing on our docket, which is, I don't know if this is good or bad news. This is just weird, like, California shit, of course. Okay, so Proposition 7 passed in California. So on Election Day, a majority of California voters, nearly 60%, voted in favor of a ballot proposal to leave the state in daylight saving time all year round.
It's just crazy people care enough about that.
Yeah, because it's like, it's always like...
It's like a law. They, changed the law.
Yeah, and it would be the only state. So it's like, okay, we're going to do our own thing over here as far as time and the sun is concerned.
It's going to complicate it more.
Yeah. So this means that Californians voted against having to set their clocks backward 1 hour during the winter months, favoring later sunrise and sunset times all year round. So basically, they just want more sun.
Okay. I mean, I don't disagree. I don't, we don't need daylight savings anymore, but, to have so much organization and voting about this, it's like, damn, Californians get their shit together so much that they can just be as organized to be like, not only are we going to reform this and reform that and reform this, but we're also not going to change our...
Yeah, we don't want it to be dark as long, so, forget the other, states. We're going to do our own thing. Okay.
That's right. That's so California.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so that wraps up our In the Know segment, and now we will move on to our What's Being Slept On segment.
So I strongly suggest that you wake the fuck up.
Now for our What's Being Slept On segment. This week we are playing government, so we're discussing policies and laws that we wish existed. So if Zelma and I were in charge of creating the laws for some society, this will give you a glimpse into what that would look like. We also had a few people write in things, so we'll read those at the end.
Yeah. And so this is inspired by just seeing a lot of the positive results for the midterm elections, where you have a lot of, you have the youngest woman to be elected to Congress, first of many, first Muslim, first Native American, first openly gay governor, so many firsts that I felt were okay, maybe we'll be able to see things get done, and thinking if I were to, what would be most important to me. So I chose things that I'm personally affected by. And so first it would be, so for nonviolent crimes, so I don't, in terms of no rape and no murder, people who have done their crime, I would like to set a law where you keep their criminal records sealed from employers. So once you've done your time, you don't have to, it doesn't show up in a background check. Obviously I put murder and rape because those are, I don't think anyone would ever be comfortable, hiring.
So you're saying that those don't count.
Those
still have to be.
If you're applying to, to be a teacher and you murdered someone, that should show up on you. Or you raped someone and you want to work in a daycare, that should show up. Yeah. But drug offenses, theft, whatever, if you already did their crime, keep that sealed. And I bring this one up because my brothers have had such a difficult time getting jobs, and my uncles, because of their criminal past, even though they haven't committed crimes, and they did their probation and they completed their community service and they did their time in jail, it's just they get jobs because they have degrees, so they get jobs, and then when it comes to the background check they fail, and then they withdraw the offer. And so I see a lot of the frustration from my brothers, just like at the point where like they want to give up and be like, well, why am I going to keep trying to get a job if they're just going to not only, and I think it's worse when they offer you the job and then take it away, because it's, were it not for this, I would be qualified.
Yeah, and it makes it abundantly clear and
obvious
that's
the
reason.
Yeah. So that would be my first one. My second one would be so that fixed interest rates would not be set by bank or credit card companies. And I say that because one of my credit cards has a 23% interest rate, which is insane. It's 20 times what it is for a mortgage. Totally like taking advantage of people who, I think that, you know, sometimes people get credit cards because
they don't have a bunch of income.
Yeah, you don't have income. And so sometimes you have to make big purchases.
Yeah.
Like for example, with me, I just got an estimate of how much my hospital bill would be when I give birth. And it's a couple $1,000s. And so I am a graduate student, and you know, my partner, we were paying a lot of student debt. We're paying a lot, you know, my partner owns a home, and so he's paying the mortgage. So at this moment, we don't have a lot of savings. So we don't have like a couple $1,000s in our savings to be able to just make one payment. And so when I saw my credit card, I was like, okay, well, let me see how the interest rates would be to put it all on my credit card, and then I figured out it's 23%. So it'd be 23% of a couple $1,000s, which would be like hundreds and hundreds of dollars on interest. And so it's just kind of like, I can't even use my credit card. I had to figure out some other way to get money, to like borrow money or to do. I consider myself at this point more privileged than a lot of other people, because I know a lot of other people don't have additional resources to be able to acquire a couple $1,000s to pay a hospital bill, and they have no other choice but to put it on a credit card. And so, which is what I used to do. It's what my mom does. It's what my brothers do. And so that would be the second thing. Interest rates should be fixed by a third party. Before Trump, I would say the federal government, because I used to trust the federal government more than I did now. And now I don't trust the federal government to do anything, because Trump has shown me that a president can really just do policies and laws that benefit his friends. And so if his friends are credit card lenders or loan companies or banks, then he's going to allow them to have really, really high interest rates. So I just want like a third party group that is voted that is voted by people that are there to set the interest rates, and they can't go above what it is to buy a house. And then no more privately owned prisons.
Yeah,
I think that it's insane that you can make money off of prison. How do you not see that there's with doing that, there's an incentive to increase the number of people that go to prison?
Yep. And there is proof that oftentimes the judges get paybacks from these privately owned prisons to send more people, to convict more people so that they can be sent to these prisons. And then who are the people that are least likely to have attorneys and all of that stuff to protect them? People of color.
Yeah, or to even have longer sentences, harsher sentences. And, next, universal health care. I think that it's insane that we don't have that, because it would just solve, like, so many people go into debt, so many people get bankrupt, so many people, like, literally lose their homes because of a hospital bill. And then no more electoral college. Like, the popular vote should count. Yes. I just don't understand how sometimes it seems like, then why do we vote?
It's so outdated.
If there are other people that are just if their vote counts, then why even have a vote? It just doesn't make sense. And then my last one would be that DACA recipients should have a path to legal citizenship. And so that's just been something that, if you've been following the news, Trump is trying to bring to the Supreme Court to have them kind of say, these 800,000 people, they're like people my age, they should just be deported. And so there should be a path to legal citizenship. And I say path to legal citizenship because they want to be able to have the opportunity to go through the process. They're not saying, like, I just want a free pass. They're saying, I want the opportunity to be able to apply to be a citizen because of all these reasons that would take another episode to go through.
Yeah.
But so these are the things that impact my life personally, that I'm really passionate about, and that if I were in charge of a society, this is what I would focus on.
And I just wanted to add one thing to your previous one about the Electoral College, just in case folks don't understand or don't know, because the Electoral College is like, I think it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's intentionally confusing, right? But the reason why the Electoral College sucks and the reason why midterms are so important is because our House of Representatives, for the states, House of Representatives, they get 1 vote. Our senators get 2 votes. And so that's why people are so bummed that, the Senate, that Republicans continue to dominate the Senate, because it's like they should vote in a way that reflects like what the people want, but they don't always.
They don't,
And it's like, how can we trust that necessarily? So I think, yes, that is why the popular vote would be a much better solution, where one vote or one person's vote is 1 vote in favor of this particular candidate, rather than it going to the Electoral College and then that being like the medium, and then using that to elect the president.
Yeah, I mean, and how can senators from California have the same weight as senators from New Hampshire?
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense. There aren't, or Montana to
or
Texas.
Freaking Texas.
Yeah.
So it's like, with, say for Texas, right, with Ted Cruz as the senator, do you think he cares about all the little black and brown people and their votes?
No.
No.
Yeah. So, it's definitely outdated, and that I would just get rid of it.
Yeah, same. Okay. All right, so I guess I have a list of 7. Okay, so number 1, right now, public schools are funded using property taxes, which means that neighborhoods with $1 million houses end up having better funded schools than neighborhoods where the homes are worth less. This ends up creating racial inequality in education, if we think about who tends to live where. So in my ideal world, I would make it so that all property taxes go in a giant fund, or like bucket of money, and each school is funded equally.
Yeah. I mean, my partner and I pay property taxes. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times people are like, well, that's easy to say when you don't have a house and you don't pay. And I'm like, no, I agree with this. I think that, everyone should put their fair share, and that way we care about the school system.
Yeah. Because the only objection to this are people that are like, I don't want to fund poor kids.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to help poor kids get a good education.
Yes.
And it's like, how crazy does that sound? We don't force anybody to say that out loud, but push come to shove, I guarantee you they would.
Yeah, and I've actually heard people say that. And so I think that this is a more equitable way to make everyone care. So it's like that your kid would get, a good education too. It's just other kids would too.
Yeah. Okay, so number 2, bring back pensions for all industries and jobs so that folks don't have to work until they die. And make the pension a living wage. So that would help old people and that would help young people, because it's like the reason why young people are having a hard time finding jobs is because old people stay in them forever. So
because they have to.
Yeah,
they can't afford not to.
Yeah, Social Security is like shit. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, number 3, allocate a fixed percentage of federal tax money to fund housing, employment, and health services for the homeless. So right now we allocate billions of dollars to the military, and now millions to ICE. Like, just ridiculous amounts of money to shit that we don't need.
Yeah.
And we cut so much spending in all these other areas that would be a social good because I don't know. Because of like
racism.
Because of racism and like illegitimate fear. Like there's no reason to be that afraid of, first of all, more afraid of people that are outside the country or like not citizens of this country or whatever than we are of our own terrorists who continue to kill people left and right. Yeah. And we don't want to do anything about that. Yeah. Like, I mean, if you're a person out there that supports, the Second Amendment and you want everybody to have guns and all that stuff, right? Or you think that the NRA is right, actually ask yourself why they won't do it. Like, if they actually care about protecting people in their lives, right? That's their claim, it's self-defense. They want to protect people in their lives. That's why we're allowing everybody to have guns. That's why we need to throw so much money at the military and so much money at ICE. Why is it that they refuse to do anything about domestic terrorism? Like, why? If they actually care. Like we said, since we last recorded, there have been 2 mass shootings. And they don't think that that's important. They don't think that yogis in California are important.
Or someone's child.
Yeah, or little school children. Like, no, they don't care. They don't care. So stop allowing them to convince you that they care, and that's why we keep going to war. No, it's over oil and money. Like, don't be fooled. Okay, 4, I'd create a mandate requiring the prison industry to provide mental health services to former convicts for the duration of their parole or probation, and perhaps longer for those that were ever in solitary confinement.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, if you have seen any of the documentaries out recently, so 13, the Khalif Browder story, you see the detrimental impacts that, being in prison has on mental health. And so based on my cousin, actually, she's a psychiatrist in a prison, and she has said that it leaves a lot to be desired. It's like it's really lacking. They don't get it consistently. They don't get treatment consistently or for long enough periods of time, among other things. This is the cousin that, if y'all listen to like earlier on, I interviewed her some episodes way back, and so now she's working in a prison, and her experience and talking to her about it leads me to feel like we're sucking as far as that's concerned. So, in addition to what Zelma said about privately owned prisons, and there's tons of reform that's needed around prison in general, but the fact that people, ex-convicts they get out of prison, their mental health is in shambles, and they can't get a job. Really just think about that.
You're setting them up for failure.
Yeah, they can't vote. Basically, it's like you're forcing them to the peripheries of society and expecting for them to not fuck up again. Yeah. It's like, no, we're not giving them the best possible, we're not putting them in the best possible situation and circumstances in order to do better, you know? Okay, 5, all sentencing for criminal charges must be voted on by a committee of judges to minimize biased rulings. So, this also ties into what we were talking about with Zelma's privately owned prisons, and the fact that there have been judges that have, there have been corrupt judges who have been found to essentially be selling. I know that there were a lot of teenagers of color who were kind of sold into prison, and these judges were getting kickbacks from the private prison industry to give longer sentences and to give more convictions. Yeah. So kind of need there to be some checks and balances there.
Yeah, creates an incentive for judges to kind of put more people in jail or prison for longer periods of time so that the prison can make more money. And it's sad. What's fucked up is the government pays these prisons. So it's you guys are paying for it. It's not, it impacts you. So is that where you want your money to go, or would you rather go to your grandma so she can fucking survive on Medicare and her Social Security?
And there's less regulations in those prisons in general because they're private, and it's that's hella problematic that there's nobody there to make sure that, the judges basically being paid to sentence people longer and give more convictions is problematic, right? But the fact that we don't know whether or not prisoners are being treated well, or just the bare minimum, fed regularly, able to bathe, not being left in solitary forever, those things are important if we want people to come out and be rehabilitated. That's why you need to, you need to care about this as a human, right? But then you also need to care about it, if you're a selfish person, also care about the fact that they're gonna get out. They're not, some people are in jail forever, but then some people aren't, and they have really bad experiences. I remember in Khalif Browder, it was he was in solitary for years. That's beyond cruel.
We can't even stand watching videos of animals on farms.
Oh my gosh, animals. People are what? Don't cage your dog. Don't, and it's
so inhumane to cage your animals. Or rabbits or chickens who've never been outside.
They don't get to graze.
Or puppy mills. That's terrible. But we're okay with
actually people. You remember what happened with mad cow disease when it was it's all these animals, they're going nuts because they're in such a small space. and they like lose their minds.
Yeah.
What do you think happens to humans?
Yeah.
What do you think happens to humans?
Yeah.
Okay, so number 6, restaurants cannot throw away unused food. So they have to donate it to the local food bank. Because if you don't know, right now, restaurants, like at the end of the day, if they haven't sold everything, depending on what it is, they throw it out.
They have to, yeah. It's like
the law,
code,
yeah. So that the people who don't get sick or have allergies or whatever, fine. But there are people that are starving, and it's like, we have to find ways, like, there shouldn't be so much unused food, and people are starving.
Because you literally have to throw it out. It's not like you're giving food that you would sell. Yeah. It's like the food would be thrown out anyway, and so it's a good use of... Yeah, no, I think that's a great one, too. Yeah. Okay, and last, juries have to be diverse. So they have to reflect the nation's racial and gender demographic. I think that this is so important, because right now, basically selecting juries is like a game. Yeah. Like, they've made a game out of it where it's like, they hire consultants. Yes. They ask these ridiculous questions. It's like, oh my God, this person that's being convicted is a person of color. Are you really gonna have a jury that's made up of people of color? Like, so then you end up with these, people that are getting these sentences where the jury was like the complete opposite of what they are. And I think that that's just as unfair as having a jury that, looks exactly like them. Yeah, it should be a jury of your peers, and I think it should go with where you're living, so like it reflects, so that it's more fair. Yeah. Okay, so that concludes my list. Now we will read the list of people that wrote in. So the first one is, so actually what's interesting is like my partner and I have these conversations a lot about the kinds of like, what the world would look like if we ran it. And so what he said, he wrote this in, and he said that his first policy would be to create a blind voting process at the local and federal level where we don't know the candidate's identity, so including their gender or their race. We identify them solely based on their political stance. So it would be like, and granted, I mean, people would probably try to guess, like, oh, based on this person is probably this. But it's like, it prevents people from voting against a candidate because they have a certain identity, or voting in favor of them because they have a certain identity. It's like, no, what is their political stance? And then he said something about, like, going policy by policy. So rather than voting for, like, this person, so rather than like voting for a person that you may agree with on certain policies but disagree with on other policies, you vote for each policy separately. So like conservatives, right, they usually are pro-life, anti-immigration, pro the death sentence or death penalty. What else are they? Like, they're like anti like welfare. Yeah, so Medicare, you would be able to... Medicaid. Yeah, and then usually Democrats are the opposite of those things. And so you can vote for each of these policies separately rather than, this like, rather than having to kind of sacrifice or compromise on your beliefs in order to support this candidate. The second is a law banning rape with a more severe punishment, like a mandatory minimum. So, for example, there's been cases where people have been convicted of sexual assault and they've gotten like a couple months or just probation or second chance. And so this person would want there to be a more severe punishment so that we can actually kind of... deter people from committing sexual assault and rape. And usually I don't like mandatory minimums, but in this case, I feel like there's just been too many times where I've seen people get lighter sentences for sexual assault and rape, mostly against women, than people who have like sold cocaine. Yeah. And I think that's crazy. Yeah. It's really crazy. Really crazy. Okay, third, better adoption process that is cheaper and less complicated. And so I know that we talked about this before, and I should have pulled up the numbers, but so there are something like more than 500,000 orphans in the country. And, there are a lot of reasons for this, right? But a big part of it is that, the foster care system and the adoption system are effed up, to put it lightly. Yeah. There's so much red tape. It's really expensive. It's time consuming. Yeah, and it's like,
I mean, these are kids that don't have parents, and there are people out there that want to adopt them.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's, I mean, granted, of course, there should be background checks, and we should make sure that these people are not crazy and all of that, but it should not be as extensive as it is, because ultimately, who's losing out?
Yeah,
the kids.
Yeah. And then police cannot be employed or acquitted if they unlawfully shoot an innocent person. So there have been cases where a police officer like murdered someone and then was acquitted, and then we find out later that they were hired by a different police department. And I just feel like there's no other job in the world where you could kill someone.
Never. Like,
even on accident.
Yeah, even doctors.
Doctors lose their license.
Yeah.
And they can't
like
be
malpractice
doctors.
suits, and then the hospitals have to pay out the ass.
Yeah, like there's just there's no other job. And so
and there have been cases where like a man, like a husband/father has been killed, and the family has gotten like $2 or $1 or something, which is like such an insult.
Yeah.
Such an insult. But that's what police what? Like, when I see those, it's just like heartbreaking. Like, this is how little we can, like, we're not gonna say you lose, we're gonna say you win and you get $1.
Yeah
for his life.
Lose.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like, this, going through this list is like just reaffirming how shitty like our government is, because we literally came up with this list. Like, we are not, we're not politicians, we're not poli-sci people, but we came up with this list in a day.
Yeah.
And it's like, y'all can't, what? Okay, so 5. A restructuring of the government assistance programs so that they aren't solely or / primarily funded by taxing the rich. So this was written in, right? And I have gone back and forth as an adult about tax reform and like what we should do. Mm-hmm. So, because on the one hand, it's like I get taxing the rich more, right?
Yeah.
First of all, they get so many tax cuts. Like, they find so many, I mean, look at Trump. Like, they find so many loopholes, right?
Yeah, no, my partner's dad is a tax lawyer, and he talks all the time about, you would not believe how rich people get out of paying taxes.
Yeah, I believe it. And I mean, now being an adult and knowing some people that have money, like, I've heard about it.
Yeah, no, it's insane. It's just kind of like, I pay more taxes than rich people.
Yeah, and so yes, I would like it to be reformed, and I'm not sure how we can make sure that they pay their taxes, but that they aren't, because like one of the reasons that they don't want to pay taxes is because they're taxed so heavily, right? And so if we made it so that it wasn't like 40% or something crazy, then maybe they would be more willing to pay them.
We need to tax corporations. Legalize marijuana and tax that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, and then last.
So this was sent in by someone, and it's a broad-scale gun ban, so no guns.
Yeah.
And I know some people are like, no, well, if you don't, no one has guns, and one person has guns, then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think that there should be like a complete gun ban, but I do think that we definitely need to restructure who has access, what types of guns you can buy, and the fact that it freaking took me so much to get freaking like just get a freaking Costco membership. You have to go through so much just to get like stupid shit, and yet you don't really have to go through a lot to get a gun, especially where we live. And so I know a lot of people who have guns growing up, and they have multiple guns, and I'm just kind of like, someone has 5 guns, and it's like, when would you need 5 guns? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
One thing that I think about is like, okay, if we think about what the biggest danger is right now, it's gun violence and like mass shootings, right?
Yeah.
In none of these mass shootings has there been a person who has had a gun and taken out the shooter. In most of these cases, the shooter takes himself out, right? And so I get the self-defense argument, and I do think it has some validity, but self-defense, like guns for self-defense don't seem to be defending much lately. Like, it's like, where are they? Yeah. You know, and I think wasn't it the Santa Fe shooting where somebody came marching up with the gun, but it was like by the time they got there, hella kids were already dead. And so
there was an armed I think there was like an armed officer nearby or something.
And it's like, I think that the self-defense argument is kind of pretentious and like arrogant. It's like, you're not pretentious, arrogant. And it's like, are you fast enough? You know, like your brain has to process. You have to
be trained for that.
Yeah, your brain, yes, police aren't even that good at it. No. And it's like, your brain has to process, I'm under attack, before you can think, oh shoot, where's my gun? Oh shoot, let me, with my limited like target practice, take this person out.
Yeah, before you get shot.
Yeah, before they shoot you.
Because it takes seconds to get shot.
And so, I don't know.
Like 11 seconds, you can shoot like multiple people.
Yeah. And it's like, half of that is you figuring out that you are in jeopardy of being shot. Mm-hmm. And then the other half is you trying to aim well enough to shoot this person before they shoot you. And it's like, I mean, I get it in theory, but in practice, you know, I feel like all these mass shootings, I think it was like, the post that I put it was like 360 mass shootings this year.
That's crazy.
362 since we last recorded.
Yeah, in a week.
Where were the self-defense rifles?
Yeah.
Or automatic weapons or bazookas, anything. Nothing was there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up there. Thanks so much for listening.
As always, if you have any comments, questions, feedback, please email us at woke.ishpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at wokeishpodcast. Send us a message. We always try to post videos of clips from the week, so feel free to comment under that about any feedback that you have about what we choose to talk about. And, thank you again so much for having us. You know, we have over 2,000 listens now, and it's just really great to see how many people are listening to each episode. So thank you once again. Share this with your friends, and we'll see.
Also, one other thing. So we are going to have an episode next week, but we're actually headed right now to a baby shower for Zelma, and she will be having a baby very soon.
Yes.
So tentatively we will continue to record, but the second season of Woke-ish may be wrapping up in a few weeks.
Yes.
As we welcome a new baby to the Woke-ish family.
Yeah.
So
have more topics.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Like, if you see there being an absence, just,
but we'll let you guys know when that's coming. But yes, thank you, Ebony, for priming you guys for a little break that's happening. But hopefully, it'll give you a chance to catch up on all the episodes that we've done.
Yeah, and to send in topics for season 3.
Yes.
All right, bye.